When it comes to managing an open source project like this, I realize there's a lot of moving pieces. You have a lot of different users coming to the project to help out. They've got different motivations. As a maintainer, what are some of the things that you do to basically keep your sanity when you're managing these projects?
Yeah, I mean, still learning, but it really depends. Like we see a lot of different people working in different ways. It ranges from anything from the very good open source player who's coming in with some ideas, are not particularly attached to the way they've fixed the problem. They just want the problem fixed. So if we push back, like, hey, it makes sense to make it this other way instead, they just go with it. And
hey, everybody, it's Roger with Kinsta. I'm joined again with my good friend Stéphane. Hey, Stéphane, how are you?
hello. Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you.
Excellent. It's great to hear and see your face. And I know that you just got done with a security conference there in Montreal, so you're recovering from that. But we had another release of Incus in the last month, and I wanted to check in and kind of see how things are going with the project.
Yeah, so I mean, we're kind of in between two releases at this point since I was out last week, and so we couldn't do our usual catch up. But yeah, Incus 6.12 released. Well, the forum says 26 days ago, so yeah, we're right around the next one at this point. Quite a few new features. I think this was one of those releases where we had quite a few contributions from those students at the University of Texas. We're going to have a few more of those in 6.13, but my understanding is that their project has basically come to an end at this point, so we're just reviewing whatever has been sent and trying to see what we can include. The main addition was support for network address sets, which makes it easier to handle kind of firewalling type things by not having to repeatedly use the same IP addresses everywhere. But now you can put them in a set and then reference that instead. Those using virtual machines probably will also enjoy the fact that we've added a memory hotplug. So it's possible to actually grow the amount of memory you give to a VM instead of just shrinking it like we had before. Those using containers, nothing changes there. We've always had support for adding more memory to containers, but it's mostly relevant for virtual machines now. We've also redone the way we do logging because we've supported basic local host logging. We supported syslog through the local logger, and we supported Grafana low-key as well. But in all cases, it was kind of limited. You didn't have much control as to what logging was routed where, and also supporting multiple remote loggers. So now we've got something that's a lot more flexible, where we can add basically an unlimited number of logging targets, whether it's a syslog server, whether it's low-key, and then you can decide for each of those what you want to send there. You can send all the log messages. If you're trying to debug something, that might make sense. But most users of enterprise environments are going to want to use the lifecycle logging, which is the more structured kind of audit trail type thing, where you can effectively record that way everything that's happening on your Incus server or cluster. So yeah, that's a lot more flexible than what we used to have. Otherwise, we had a couple more tweaks to networking, small tweak to authentication, authorization as well. We've been adding more support for server-side filtering. So those need dealing with environments with a lot of whether it's instances or images or any of those, instead of the server having to figure out everything and then send all of the data in one shot to the client, and the client does filtering. We've added support for server-side filtering quite a while ago on all the collections. But now we're making changes to the client to actually make use of that feature and use the right API to do the filtering. Okay. So yeah, that's most of what's in 6.12. We're going to go through 6.13 soon once it's out. The one thing we can probably tease is agent support for Windows. So those running Windows VMs, they're not going to be able to actually use Incus exec and Incus file transfers directly with their Windows VMs. So that's going to be quite welcome. It's a very early step because you're still gonna have to manually start the agent. There's no nice Windows installer for it. There's no it's currently using the network to talk back to Incus instead of going over our internal connections through VSOC, because the Windows drivers for that aren't, like, Red Hat did the work to implement them, but they've not been sent to Microsoft for signing, so we can't rely on them yet. So it's still pretty early days, but the main features people want to see are going to be there, and there's going to be a bunch more additions in 6.13, so looking forward to that.
Okay, very exciting. As far as like any practical uses or examples that you could pull from like these latest features, what's something that, somebody should just be like, oh yeah, this is exactly the use case that I need this for?
Yeah, I mean, network address sets should be kind of the pretty obvious example of anyone who's running an environment where you see a lot of duplication within your firewall rules, like you see the same IP addresses copied absolutely everywhere. You're gonna want to use this because that's gonna save you a lot of mistakes, basically, by just having one place to manage. Okay, that's the address set for all of my web servers, all of my database servers, all of my whatever, and then you can just reference that instead of having to keep copy pasting the IP addresses and eventually either make a typo or forget to update something, or you remove a server at some point and you forget to remove it, and now you've got access to potentially the wrong server. Yeah, that should make things quite a bit easier.
Excellent. Excellent. When it comes to managing an open source project like this, I realize there's a lot of moving pieces. You have a lot of different users coming to the project to help out. They've got different motivations. As a maintainer, what are some of the things that you do to basically keep your sanity when you're managing these projects?
Yeah, I mean, still learning, but it really depends. Like we see a lot of different people working in different ways. It ranges from anything from the very good open source player who's coming in with some ideas, are not particularly attached to the way they've fixed the problem. They just want the problem fixed. So if we push back like, hey, it makes sense to make it this other way instead, they just go with it. And, they're responsive, but they also understand that we're not always around to answer questions and to review things, that occasionally it's going to take a while, and they're fine with that. So that's kind of the best kind of contributors that we get. Then we've got kind of the corporate style contributors. So they come from a more corporate environment, and they're usually around. They're pretty responsive, so that's good. But they often have another agenda. So the agenda tends to be, hey, we need this thing in there for our product or for this internal release or for something. So they tend to work on a deadline, and they tend to push that deadline onto us, even though it's not our deadline, So they can get a bit frustrated at times when we're like, well, no, this thing is not exactly the way we want it. We're not going to merge it now. It's going to miss this release. That's fine. It's going to be the next one. So that there can occasionally be some frustration there. It depends on obviously the company that's contributing. Some perfectly get open source, understand how things work, and they tend to kind of work ahead. Like they've got a list of things that they want to see done or implemented for something they're doing in 6 months. And so they're working on that months beforehand, and therefore they're fine. It's a bit more of a problem when folks show up last minute with like, hey, we've got a product coming out next week. We need this in now. It's like, okay, but I don't really care about your product, so we're just gonna get it in when it's ready. We're not gonna risk affecting quality for everyone else to make you happy. You can always manually build your thing for a few weeks with a patch, and then get rid of the patch when the final version is in our code base. And I also kind of hinted at what's going on, for example, the students, where they're not contributing to Incus necessarily because they use it. I don't think any of them did when they started contributing to it. They contribute to Incus because they get extra credits, which that means a pretty wide difference of approach from them. Like some of them basically take an issue and do the bare minimum that seems like it's sounding like the issue and send a pull request and then it disappear, which is not great because most of the time we end up rewriting the entire thing. So that's not amazing. But it goes all the way to folks who actually manage to run, like they're running Incus on their laptops or in virtual machines or something. They really get it. They start playing with it. They do their change. They notice some other kind of related issues, more often than not, from some of their classmates that didn't do quite as good a job. And they just fix that as well. And they're responsive and they take something else to look at. And those are great to work with. And every year we deal with maybe anywhere between 25 and 30 students coming from the University of Texas. And I guess maybe 10-20% of those are really great to work with, and they're very responsive and really get it. And they give us code that we spend 5 minutes reviewing, yeah, that's good. They clearly tested it. They clearly made sure it was good and it's great. And everyone else, we spend a fair amount of time on. Best case scenario, it's just structure type thing. We just reshuffle changes between files. We just like fix commit name, commit titles, and simple things. We add maybe a couple of small things they missed, and we're done. And some others is like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be actually easier to just redo it. And if we had more time and they were around longer, then we could do a bunch more back and forth and make them really learn and understand what's going on and go up until they actually submit the right thing. But we've usually taken the approach of realizing that like, hey, they're not gonna spend days and days and days on this. So if it feels like they've gone more than 50% of the way there, we tend to just take it, fix whatever is missing, and just post in the pull request. Okay, that's all the stuff we had to fix to make it actually line up with our expectations. And yeah, thanks for your contribution. They get the credit on it even though we did half the work, and that works out. Like that way, it's mostly a positive experience for everyone. Like we still got some amount of work done from them. They still get the credit on it, and you know, it works pretty well. So yeah, there's a bit of everything. So far, one thing we've kind of braced ourselves for, but we've not had to deal too much with, is people just mass trying to fix issues by just dumping them into an LLM. So we've put a clear contribution guideline that we do not tolerate anything coming from an LLM. So if someone opens a pull request and they can't actually explain exactly what it does, why it does it, and why this is the right way to do it, we're gonna effectively not only close the pull request, but then ban the user from contributing ever again. Because this is a waste of time. There's been a number of similar reports from maintainers, like the curl maintainer, I think is the one who was the most vocal about that recently, basically getting flooded by security issues that were just LLMs, like someone basically sending the source code of curl to an LLM and be like, find security issues in this, and then starting to find issues from that. That's a massive waste of time for everyone involved. So I don't really mind someone using an LLM to generate like some ideas, some templates maybe, do something like that. But when it comes to code they send to us, they better understand every single line of it, because otherwise it's just a waste of our time and waste of theirs.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I read that same article with the curl maintainer and just like putting the gauntlet down of, you know, stop it. And it completely makes sense, right? Because you want to be paying attention to all of these pull requests and you know, being a good maintainer. But if it's just getting flooded with this junk, then that's not going to be very useful. So the vibe coding, I mean, you know, this isn't quite vibe coding, right? I mean, vibe coding is actually going back and forth with the LLM and really understanding it. So if people are really vibe coding, they would be submitting stuff that they understand, from what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, some people that do vibe coding literally start from nothing and just kind of keep giving feedback to the LLM of like, oh, actually, I want this feature to look more like this. I want the UI to look more like that. And I think we see a lot more of the vibe coding stuff going on with web development and app development.
Okay.
Because I think it's easier for an LLM to really cover that kind of thing than low-level operating system, security-sensitive type thing, which is kind of what we do. And for us, the main risk is like, you know, we need to think of all of the security aspects and make sure that there's nothing wrong. And at this point, LLMs have not really showed to be very reliable for that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's on one hand, that's very reassuring, right? I mean, the whole it's coming for your job is not quite there yet. So that's always good to hear.
Yeah.
Stéphane, as far as, you know, big picture items, we've talked about this before, you know, things coming down the line for Incus that you're really excited about and that you could even use maybe some potential help on from, you know, the more advanced or the more useful open source helpers out there. What are kind of the features that you're really excited about, and how could you use help? Like what kind of a coder or developer could really help you with that project?
Yeah, a lot of what we're doing these days is either VM related, advanced networking related, or at this point, kind of operating system related, because we're building Incus OS and we're getting to a point where it's basically ready for some people to start using now. It's running, like I've got a laptop running it there. The conference I was running last week was running the production router on Incus OS. So we're starting to get there, but there's going to be a lot more integration type things that needs to come in there. So people with a good amount of Linux distribution experience might be interested in looking at that. Otherwise, on the Incus side, yeah, the big kind of ticket items we've got at this point are either complex networking, so it's things like doing tunneling between oven and other type of networks, so to handle things like migrating virtual machines from VMware to Incus and keeping them on the same network type thing. So we've got some of that going on. We've got more BGP mesh type network things going on as well. And on the VM side, the biggest thing we've got coming is running of application container images inside of VMs. So running the Docker type container images inside of VMs to kind of fill in the gaps where we currently have system containers, so full Linux distributions. We've got full VMs and we've got application containers, but we don't have application VMs. So we just want that piece to get added. So we've got the same, like a consistent story kind of across the board.
Very cool. All right. Well, if you're out there and you have some wicked knowledge, make sure you go and check out the Incus project. Stéphane, is there anything else if people want to get in touch with you or the project? What are the best places for them to find you on the internet?
So, the project, you can find us on GitHub, obviously. We've got a community forum at discuss.linuxcontainers.org. That's pretty active with a lot of community members on there, chatting about what they're doing and who can help out anyone who wants to get into Incus. And otherwise, I'm also on YouTube with reasonably frequent Incus live streams, but also the release announcements are on YouTube.
Yes, awesome. As always, Stéphane, it's great to talk with you. I look forward to checking in with you next month and seeing everything that's going on. Always great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
All right, have a good one.